I'd like to welcome you to Unity Spiritual Center's Ottawa's 2022 theme of taking a deep dive. This year is called Taking a Deep Dive, and we certainly know why, looking at world events. It's a powerful year of creating our lives as we arise from the challenges that we're experiencing over the past 2 years. And we have our toes in a new world that's known as a Kali Yuga, meaning new life, the golden age. And 2022 has been called the Master Builder Year. And in order to assist to build our new lives, since January, we've been taking a deeper dive with single topics over a 3-week period to more fully integrate spiritual theory. And so with that in mind, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our talk and speaker for today. This week, our wisdom teaching is called The Hero's Journey, Part 3, Roll Away the Stone. Reverend Jane will dive into the final phase of the hero's journey, rising up from the tomb through the resurrecting power of spirit. Let me share a little bit about Reverend Jane. She's an ordained minister and educator who holds a doctoral degree in theology from Hellos University. Since her ordination in 1999, Jane has ministered in 4 Unity churches in Canada and the United States, as well as serving as a team ministry coordinator for Unity Worldwide Ministries and adjunct faculty for Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute. She has a passion for heart-centered personal and cultural transformation and is committed to helping bring forth a kinder, more compassionate world. She is the Unity's 2020 recipient of the Light of God Expressing Award. A student and teacher of mysticism, she is co-author of Quantum Living and co-creator of the Quantum Process, a shadow work system that focuses on healing and integration, which can be found at www.theartofquantumliving.com. Jane's children and grandchildren live in Canada. So let's extend a warm USCO and Unity Kitchener welcome to Reverend Jane Simmons, and Reverend Jane will follow her talk with a meditation. Welcome, Jane.
There. Thank you so much. Thank you for the welcome and for the song. I can't think of a better song to take us into this wonderful message of renewal and rising up than the one that you chose. And so thank you to all of you. I feel so blessed to be with you on this very holy day of Easter. And I want to welcome you to the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox, otherwise known as Easter, the movable feast as it's called, and it moves because it's based on the lunar calendar rather than the solar calendar. So this is it's a deep spiritual awakening, the season of deep spiritual awakening. And today it can be a day of release and moving into new life. The name Easter comes from the word east. As you heard, it was originally celebrated as a welcome of the return of the sun in the spring, and it was a tribute to the goddess Istra. The early Christians were quite masterful at taking the pagan ritual that was currently being celebrated and then Christianizing it. And so a ceremony of fertility and new life, bunnies and eggs, became a celebration of resurrection of Jesus. Now, we've spent the last 2 Sundays exploring the elements of the heroic journey, looking first at the call, an evolutionary impulse that is beckoning us into growth. Oftentimes, this call is not necessarily a pleasant one. It can be a crucifixion experience, in fact. But then after we answer the call, then what happens? Well, now we have the time spent wandering in the wilderness. We have the time spent in the tomb, facing the inner dragons that we may have to meet and overcome in order to have that growth that we're being called into. We look at all the obstacles to that and kind of come face to face with them in that wilderness tomb period. Now we're going to take a closer look at the Easter story with an eye for the final phase of the heroic journey, which is rolling away the stone. And yes, that is my talk title. And rising up from the tomb with this resurrecting power of spirit. And it's about leaving the wilderness and actually arriving at the promised land. Now, whether we consider this well-known story of crucifixion and resurrection to be true or not, I mean, the question arises, doesn't it? Is it true? Did this truly happen? Is it a true historical event? Did a man named Jesus physically rise up after 3 days of being put to death? Or maybe is it a legend of some kind that grew up around Jesus' ministry? Was it a mythological fable containing elements that are also found within many ancient cultures and religious traditions predating Christianity? Was it a metaphysical story that mirrors our own spiritual journey? How would you answer that question? Is it some of the above, all of the above? So just consider in your mind how it feels to you. But what I've come to believe after wrestling with this in the past is, guess what? It really doesn't matter whether it's an accurate account of true events or if the story is mythical. The importance, as always, is the capital T truth that's encoded within it. That's what we want to get to. The importance of it is the truth that's contained within the story. And guess what? That truth is what can transform our lives as we look within ourselves and find meaning from the story. So whatever you ultimately believe, this story, regardless of its source, has the potential to have great spiritual significance for every single one of us if we explore the meaning that is encoded within us. So let's do that this morning as we look at Easter morning. What happened Easter morning? What does the Easter morning story tell us? What's written in the Gospels? And then as we look at that part of the story, we can allow this inner drama to unfold for us, see what the symbolism, the meaning of this early morning experience may be for all of us. So I invite you to listen to the story with your heart. See what resonates with you. Now, the scriptural account says that at early dawn, 3 women, the women who followed Jesus, came to the tomb, bringing with them burial spices that they had prepared. And when they arrived, they were surprised to find the stone was rolled away from the entrance of the tomb, and they were unable to find Jesus' body. And while they stood puzzling over this, wondering where his body had disappeared to, they saw 2 men, it says, with dazzling light cascading over them. And the women became frightened, bowed their faces to the ground. And then the men said this, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He's not here, but has risen." And so they ran to tell the others what they had seen. There is so much richness and depth in just this tiny little slice of the story. So let's take a look at some of the symbology and see what it might mean for each one of us. To begin with, the story takes place at dawn. You see, the sun begins to rise. The sun begins to arise and illumine what was previously in darkness. Metaphysically, it's the first glimmer of hope that comes to us as we near our time of wandering in the wilderness. We near the end of that time. We're nearing the end of the 3 days in the tomb, or the 40 years of wandering in the desert, whatever it is has been for us. We begin with a little glimmer of hope. The darkness starts to recede, the light becomes brighter, and this light represents a dawning on our awareness of something new, a new possibility. Something can change. What was previously hidden is starting to be revealed to us. And when the light begins to shine, it's a moment of revelation for us, of a new understanding, of new awareness, an aha moment. If you've ever had that aha moment when you've been really struggling in the dark, you start to see, oh, there is something that can change here. There is a possibility for transformation. It can be a turning point for us, for shifting things and stepping into a new, more expanded vision of what we have previously believed. And what was the understanding being illuminated in the story? Well, the light was revealing this possibility of transformation. When they found the tube empty, they realized what they had previously believed to be permanent, the death of Jesus, was shown to not be the truth. So here's the important point for us to remember. During our wilderness experiences, outer appearances are not telling us the whole story. It's not that it's necessarily wrong. It's just that the sensory world shows us an incomplete picture, you see. It's a very small slice of the pie. And think of what this could mean in your own life. If it means that even if you've been trying to lose weight for 20 years, or if you've tried to quit an addictive habit in the past unsuccessfully, or you can't seem to rise above a difficult challenge, all those things can appear insurmountable to overcome. But the light dawns and tells us that what we previously believed is not the whole truth. And we now discover that we have the ability to change that belief. You see, this is the important part, is the belief that it's insurmountable is what's in the way. And now we realize that we have the ability to change that. You know, I can remember the exact moment during my doctoral program when I made the jump from, I am never going to be finished this program. And in fact, I don't have what it takes to be successful. That's where I was stuck in that wilderness time. And I was able to move to, I can do this. I see a light at the end of a tunnel. I'm going to make it. You see, it was a blissful moment for me when I got that. I'm going to make it. It's going to work. And once I shifted the belief, guess what? Everything changed. Everything changed because I'd been struggling for what felt like a decade to try to get through this program. But once I shifted that belief, everything changed. Suddenly, I had momentum on my side. You see, there was no stopping me now. I was churning out those papers left and right with ease, by the way. They know I was no longer struggling. But it took that aha moment. It took a shift in perspective, releasing a limiting belief that was keeping me from being successful. So if there's something in your life that you have believed can't change or is no longer moving forward for you, take heart and know that this story tells us otherwise. Okay, this is what we want to get. But in order to emerge from this embeddedness in the wilderness experience, we need a change of perspective. And it involves an evolutionary recognition that what I have thought myself to be is not the whole truth of me. And when we get that, when we allow our whole self to participate, something greater can emerge. Something greater can emerge. And it's much more than the sum of the fragmented parts. It's something much greater. The poet Shalon Harkin describes an experience of emergence from this wilderness experience as this: a catalyzing, paradigm-tipping flood of enlivened, inspired energy that carved a new channel in my being. What a great way to describe it. That is some serious soul force happening right there. That's true resurrecting power, and it can propel us into the promised land. So the Easter story begins with a dawning on our awareness. Excuse me for a moment here. There. It begins with a dawning on our awareness that transformation is possible, that even when outer appearances would have us believe that our life is not working or that change is impossible, the universal creative force of spirit within us, the aliveness that is within us right now, is active. It's active here, it's active now. Spirit is always moving, even when we can't see that that's so. Cecil B. DeMille tells a story called Transformation to New Life, about a young boy and his grandfather fishing in a rowboat, not a robot, fishing in a rowboat one afternoon. And the boy became restless and began watching some insects on the water as they were playing together, when one of them crawled up onto the oar, attached itself by the talons of its legs to the oar, and promptly died right there. Now, 3 hours later, the young boy looked down at the insect and he cried out. And he and his grandfather watched in amazement and astonishment as they saw something emerging from the dried shell that once contained the insect. First tentacles, then a head, then moist wings, until finally a beautiful dragonfly sat before them. And it moved its wings slowly at first, but then began flying around and hovering over the water where the other insects still played. They didn't seem to recognize it anymore. And the boy nudged the dried out shell and found it was an empty tomb. So in our own lives, we don't want to focus so much on the crucifixions we experience that we miss the resurrection, you see. Do we look at the empty shell and miss the glorious flight of the dragonfly? When we see a beautiful butterfly, we're not grieving for the cocoon. No, these experiences actually show us the progression of life, and we need to see beginnings and endings in our own lives in the same way. But we have to see them with the eyes of possibility. As Buckminster Fuller says, there is nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a butterfly. It takes a vision beyond the outer appearance of to what is real. It's seeing beyond the outer appearance. And then it's releasing what may be stopping us from expressing that reality. And so what's the barrier? What's the barrier? It's the stone of limiting beliefs. And if I have a belief that it's impossible to be successful in some way, because in the past I've had limiting success, then guess what? It will be impossible for me. But the belief is the very reason that it will be impossible, that I'll be unsuccessful. We want to discover what the belief is and roll that stone away, because it isn't the truth. So what have you allowed to become a stone in your consciousness? What has blocked you, shut you off from feeling vitally alive, from being radiant, free, joyous, from living life effectively and successfully? Is it the appearance of illness or disease? Is that your stone? How about feelings of low self-worth or the belief in lack? How about resentments or fear, shame, guilt, being stuck in the past? Any of those things can keep us back. But the good news is that if we've imprisoned ourselves in this way, it's a tomb of our own making. The stone can be rolled away, not by human might, not by human power, but by the universal creative force of spirit. It's the spirit within us that overcomes the doubts and the fears that have kept us in bondage. And if you remember, the men in the tomb posed the question, why do you seek the living among the dead? Those 9 words speak volumes. Why do we seek the living among the dead? Why would we seek the chicken in the broken eggshell? You see, we won't find it there. It's been transformed. It's become so much more. So what does that mean for me? Well, what are the empty tombs in my life? What might I be seeking? Where might I be seeking the living among the dead? When I find myself stuck in the past on autopilot, letting those limiting beliefs run the show, I really miss the life that is happening right here and now. Beliefs are always from the past. They're just thoughts that we have been thinking over and over and over again until they become firmly entrenched in our psyche and our everyday living. We may not even be conscious of them anymore. They've become conditioned behavior for us. And yet those are the things that can keep us back. So looking to the past, reliving old hurts and resentments, angers, mistakes, whether I'm regretting the past or I'm rehashing it, or I'm nostalgically wishing it was still here. Whatever the focus may be, it stops me from living right now. It becomes the stone that keeps me imprisoned in my past. Why look for the living among the dead? We need to let go of what has been and stay present to life here and now, because life's not a dress rehearsal. We know this. It's a moment by moment experience that we can either be present for or we can completely miss. The Christ won't be revealed to us in the tomb. Why? Because we're blinded by those beliefs. We can't see what's there because we're looking through the lens of the belief. We won't find the Christ in the past. We only find the Christ in the present. The presence can only be experienced in the present moment. So we have an understanding that transformation is possible. And now the story tells us that in order to experience that transformation, we need to stay present to what is. Become aware of the beliefs from the past that are holding us back and blocking our movement forward, and instead return to the present moment rather than letting those beliefs run things unconsciously under the radar. Now, is it as easy as all that? No, it's not. It takes time, it takes work, especially if there's some unresolved trauma or clinical depression involved, or if there's a really major loss that we have suffered through of some kind. We might need extra help. We might need extra help to work through those. These calls we receive, they're not always pleasant impulses. Many are bona fide crucifixion experiences: divorce, death of a loved one, illness, abuse, whatever it is. And so it's important, first of all, to give ourselves all the time we need for mourning, for grieving, a time of questioning. What else could I have done to have a different outcome? Why did I let my fear overcome me? We all have these experiences, and we have to walk through the emotion, the feelings of regret, betrayal, grief, whatever it is that comes with it. And we may want to seek out therapeutic support to help us through this wilderness time. We need to give ourselves the time it takes and to ask for help as needed. But the truth is, it takes as long as it takes. As Stephanie Marshall points out, we can't just put wings on the caterpillar. You see, there's a process. It takes time. But of course, we don't want to get stuck there. Remember, the length of time we stay in the tomb determines how long it takes for Easter morning to arrive. And as we talked about last week, this wilderness period, it's not the fun part, but it's a very necessary part of the process. Now, another important point in the story, it was all women who discovered what had happened, and they ran to tell the men. What does that mean metaphysically? Well, guys, it's no reflection on you. It's all about our own feminine feeling nature that's all inherent in all of us, male and female. It's that feeling nature that connects with this understanding, that has the dazzling experience, that discovers the magic. The intellect that we all have, the male part of ourselves, what does it do typically? Doesn't believe it, tries to rationalize it, explain it away. We need to get into the feelings, get beyond what the mind is telling us into the intuitive heart in order to discover this gift of transformation that awaits us from our past. So we really want to embody this truth. And the way in is through gratitude. We already heard about gratitude today. It's really the way that we connect with this portal of the heart, is to get into a state of gratitude and let that open wide. It rolls away the stone when we're in a place of gratitude and love. And so we're going to be activating that in our meditation time later on. Now, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with our rational minds, by the way. In fact, they're very, very useful. The problem arises when we let them totally run the show and we don't listen to the heart as well. We miss the magic. So we need integration of mind and heart. We need to use all of our faculties to gain understanding. So it's head and heart together that can help us, can lead the way out of the tomb. The Australian spiritual author Ian Watton wrote this: "The Easter story, whether you understand it literally or as a long-lasting myth about universal experiences, has all the elements of life in it: betrayal, disappointment, disillusionment, loss, corruption, relief, joy, courage, surprise, forgiveness, and so much more. It's a real world story of despair giving way to hope. This is what we want to get. It's a real world story that takes us from despair to hope. It opens the door to something new. So the true message of Easter is not that you'll never again experience loss or pain, or that you'll never have a betrayal. This heroic journey that we're on, guess what? It's a lifelong one. But as the story reminds us, the power within you is greater than any of these crucifixion experiences. And if you let go of the past and allow that power to move through you, you will rise up to a new level of awareness. Entombed within each one of us are hopes and dreams and longings that have been buried, and contained within this beautiful story is the spiritual opportunity to resurrect those things with the right conditions. You see, they can grow. Just imagine rolling away the stone of disillusionment and negative thinking and lifting ourselves out of the tomb of doubt to resurrect a new vision. Norman Vincent Peale describes death this way: when you lose your eagerness, when you lose your sense of wonder, when you lose your ability to be deeply moved, when you never weep for any cause, when you no longer dream dreams or see vision, when life has become dull, dead, inert, though you may be 20 years old and physically healthy, something in you has died. It needs resurrection. And he describes those living in this condition as unburied dead people. So, what needs resurrecting in your life? And are you ready to roll away the stone? These are great questions to ask ourselves while remembering we have within us all we need to be successful. Let's breathe that in. What needs resurrecting? Are you ready to roll away that stone and allow that resurrecting power to rise you up? Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, tells us Easter is the celebration of the rising of the triumphant Christ spirit in you and me. And that is the true message. Resurrection means that Good Fridays never last forever, you see. So I invite you to allow that transforming power of spirit to roll away the stone in your life, whatever that may be. And it doesn't matter how many spiritual detours we may have taken, we can turn our attention to the Christ within ourselves and see beyond the illusion of separation as we rise in love. The possibility of transformation is present in every single moment. The time is always present. The power is always now. Happy Easter to all of you. And so let's take a moment now. Let's settle in for a moment of meditation on this glorious, sacred morning of spiritual rebirth. So I invite all of you to just relax into your seats if you're sitting down. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. And focus your awareness on your breath. Just notice it moving in and out. It's the rhythm of our breathing. Our breath is our sacred companion through life. I once heard a spiritual master share, whenever you feel upset or hurt in any way, return to your old friend, the breath. Old friend. So just feel that sense of being accompanied through your life by this breath. It's with you from the moment you take your first breath until the moment you take your last. Always there. So as we focus on our breathing, just imagine breathing right into your heart. And put your hand on your heart if that helps you to connect with that space. But you want to imagine you're breathing right into that heart space. Now bring into your awareness someone or something that you deeply appreciate. It could be a beloved person in your life, could be a cherished pet, could be a place of beauty or a memory that warms your heart. Choose someone or something that activates the feeling and start to feel your heart begin to warm with this healing vibration of appreciation. I just have to think of any of my grandchildren, and my heart automatically opens to them. So feel that feeling of gratitude as it begins to warm your heart. We feel the expansiveness of that healing vibration as we let it radiate beyond the heart and let it spread throughout your body. Every cell alive, invigorated, on fire. Now we breathe into the heart and we let it expand even more beyond the body. And feel this connection, this network of gratitude that all of us are a part of. It's an energetic field of gratitude. And we let it open our hearts even more as we feel that deeper sense of connection with the heart's intelligence. The portal opens. The stone rolls away. And we let the heart bring this new vision of possibility into our awareness, knowing the truth that every one of us is here to express the truth of who we are, to express the Christ that lives within all of us. And as we let it rise up, let that healing power carry us through all of our wilderness experiences. We know the truth that this resurrecting power of spirit is within us and with us always, just awaiting our recognition, awaiting our calling forth of the truth of our being. So we continue breathing into the heart, letting that feeling of gratitude grow and expand, becoming generosity and loving kindness, compassion. Just feel it blossoming from within you as we enter the silence together. We give grateful thanks for the sacredness of this story, for the sacredness of this glorious morning, for the reality of who we are, and for the opportunity to express that truth on this day. We rise up in gratitude for this truth. We are grateful. So it is. Amen.